Hello heathens, and welcome to my channel. I am Beauty Heathen, and my channel is dedicated to the exploration of paganism. Sometimes I do readings, sometimes I do demonstrations for ritual work, and sometimes, like today, I delve into the education aspect through the medium of cosmetics. If you are new to my channel, I welcome you and thank you so much for joining us. If you are returning, thank you so much for your continued support. It truly means the world to me. If you feel you would enjoy the subject matter or find my content of interest, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and set that bell to all to be notified of when I release new videos. Remember, it is free to subscribe, and your support helps me grow my platform. In today's episode, I will be discussing the subject of paganism and the LGBT community. It is Pride Month. And with that, I wanted to give some credence and some attention to the LGBT community as it pertains to the realm of paganism. Now, today's look is going to be obviously rainbow inspired as a result. And I want to give a little disclaimer that all of the things that I bought and will be using in this video were purchased before a lot of what has been going on and before I knew a lot about 90% of what's going on, so at the very least. So please don't come for me in the comments. I do plan on getting a fixie kit and depotting all of my eyeshadows, because where I'm not a review channel, it doesn't really matter if you guys know what eyeshadows I'm using or what companies I'm using as it is. You're basically just watching me color on ahead. So with that, going forward, I'm probably going to not announce the products that I'm using, just because it's getting to be a little daunting. And I hope you can be respectful, be mindful. I don't want to throw away thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars of cosmetics that I can't afford to replace them all. So I hope you can understand. I hope you can bear with me as I go through the process of using everything up that I have and replacing it with other things. But let's be honest here, this is probably going to be taking me a long time to do that because I don't do a lot of cosmetic looks every single week. So please bear with me. I will get a fixie kit, depot things, and all of that kind of stuff, so it's not advertised, as it were. Another little disclaimer before I begin. Please know that the information I'm about to delve into will not pertain to all pagan spiritualities, modalities, and forms. Not all pagan groups are or have been fully accepting of the LGBT community. This is a subject I will continue to cover as time progresses, even past Pride Month, because it's something that I want to bring more attention to, that not only has the LGBT community existed a long freaking time before it's become known or popular. I'm trying to think of a better word for that. More well known than as it has become in more recent years. Largely due to it being illegal and oppressed for a very long time. But I did want to delve into especially some of the ancient aspects and how not only is the LGBT community represented in the pagan community, but also in the deities they worship to some extent. I can't possibly go through all of them, but I will touch on some of them. So, with all of that said, on with the show. And let me find where I want to start color-wise, this is going to be probably a more simple look than I was hoping to do, but it should be a look regardless. Trying to find where to start. There's a good color scheme. That has most of the colors I need as it is. I will be honest, I've been struggling in the products that I have to find a metallic yellow, a pure metallic yellow. Let me just double check the So Jaded palette. Not metallic. I have a yellow, but it's not a metallic one. Although I can possibly dress it up with topaz, so. Okay. With that, let's get on with it. It is a little known fact that many of the early pioneers of the pagan revival in England were gay. So this is not touching on the ancient aspect, but since paganism started coming to the foreground again. I'll get into the more ancient areas further down. Goldsworthy Lowes Dickinson, who came up with the idea of the League of Nations, was a gay man and had close connections with the Bloomsbury Group, and as a friend of E.M. Forster and Edward Carpenter, both of whom were gay. So by and large, the community we can thank for bringing a lot of paganism back to the foreground and making it popular again was the LGBT community. So, much like many of the things that they have led the way in, they also led the way with this. I don't know that that's coming up on camera. It is sort of, but not as much as I would like, so it's going to take a little bit to build that up. Back in the late 19th century, he advocated the revival of the Greek view of life, including paganism and same-sex love. Sorry, trying to brighten things up a little bit. Maybe so you might be able to see some of the colors a little better on film. Edward Carpenter, a gay pagan vegetarian socialist poet around the same time, also advocated a return to nature and wildness, and corresponded with Walt Whitman for a time. His vision of the socialist utopia sounds very pagan. Carpenter began to believe that socialism should not only concern itself with man's outward economic conditions, but also effect a profound change in human consciousness. In this new stage of society, Carpenter argued that mankind would return to a primordial state of simple joy. The meaning of the old religions will come back to him. On the high tops, once more gathering, he will celebrate with naked dances the glory of the human form and the great processions of the stars, or great bright horn of the young moon. This was written by Edward Carpenter in 1989, Civilization, Its Cause and Cure. Okay. You can probably see a little bit better if I hold it up close. It's not I'm not sure it's showing up as I'm attempting to get it to as I put it down. So I just want to show you it is there. Let me go to an orange tone. Edward Carpenter was an enthusiastic advocate of nature as a place of freedom, and following him, his friend, E.M. Forster, made the hero of his novel, Maurice, feel at one with the forest and the night, as soon as he had made the decision to adopt an actively gay lifestyle. Harry Hay, founder of the Radical Fairies, who was a carpenter enthusiast, also stressed the importance of communing with nature. Okay, this might be the place where the orange actually shows up. I like these shadows, but at the same time they are very, very, very glittery and they get everywhere. If you are new to my channel, these heads can be a bit of a pain in the butt to get things to show up. Probably would have been, I don't know if it would have shown up on better on a different head. I know I was having a lot of struggle cleaning this head before I prepped it for recording, so that may have something to do with it having problems applying color today. So please forgive me if it doesn't show up as I'm intending to try to get it to do. Research carried out by Rebecca Beatty into the literary roots of the pagan revival also uncovered a bisexual woman who was enthusiastic about ancient paganism, nature, and the countryside. And her name was Sylvia Townsend Warner, author of Lolly Willows. We can, in fact, trace influences between authors, the Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, Bronson Alcott, and Walt Whitman in America, corresponding with the Rabindranath Tagore, W.B. Yeats, Edward Carpenter, and Goldsworthy Lowes Dickinson. Carpenter then influenced D.H. Lawrence and E.M. Forster, who were fascinated with nature, mysticism, and all these ideas fed into the pagan revival as we know it today. Maybe a little bit more work there. These early pioneers were, as oftentimes happens, forgotten in the later pagan revival of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it was only in the late 90s that pagans began to be interested in them again. Okay. Just trying to make sure I'm not making a huge mess everywhere and that colors are sort of showing up. Alright. Now, as I've discussed previously on this channel, paganism is an umbrella term that includes a number of different traditions. Some of the most widely known ones include Wicca, pagan witchcraft, Buddhism, Hindu, Druidry, something I've covered on this channel before, which is Celtic nature worship, and heathenry in Norse and Saxon traditions. I'm going to try Charmed as the yellow color. I'm trying to stick to this one palette as much as I can, just for ease of use. There are also a number of different groups reconstructing ancient pagan religions, such as Reglio-Romana, Lituva, and Chemeticism. Because these traditions mostly rose out of post-Enlightenment culture, they are generally inclusive towards LGBT people and friendly towards people of other religions and no religion. Many ancient pagan communities were also tolerant towards both same-sex love and gender variance, like so in their culture. LGBT and gender fluidity also shows up in the deities worshipped by these groups, as I mentioned in the beginning of recording. Trying to blend some of the colors together a bit so that they show up. Okay, so I just want to show you a little bit. We have red, orange, yellow. I'll go over that with a brighter yellow as well to help it stand out a little bit more. Okay, that seems to be working a bit. Yeah. Just moving the script down. Many cultures, therefore, feature gods, demigods, heroes, and other mythological beings with both male and female attributes, and it is interesting to ask why that may be. In Hindu mythology, Vishnu's female avatar, Mohini, and please forgive me if I am mispronouncing their names. I mean no disrespect, I'm just not well versed in the actual pronunciations. If I'm doing it wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments down below. Seduced Shiva, leading to the birth of the god Shasta. Shiva himself is often represented as Ardhanarveshvara, an androgynous composite of Shiva and Parvati, with a body that is male on the right-hand side and female on the left. The great warrior of the Mahabharata epic, Arjuna, a kind of Hindu version of Achilles, spent a year as a woman, during which he took the name Brihanala and taught song and dance to the princess Uttara. Speaking of Achilles, to to prevent him from dying at Troy, as had been foretold, his mother, the nymph Thetis, sent him to live at the court of the king of Skyros, disguised as another daughter of the king, under the name Perha, the red-haired Isa, or Kirkisera. Please forgive me. I'll put the names up on the screen just because I know I'm absolutely obliterating the pronunciation. Even Thor, the Germanic god of thunder, had no choice but to travel to the land of the giants, dressed as a bride, to retrieve his hammer, the Mjolnir, without which the Asgardian gods would have been overpowered by the giants. Then we see Hapi, or Hopi, the Egyptian god of the annual flooding of the Nile, who brought such fertility as to be regarded by some as the father of the gods. He is generally depicted as intersex, with pendulous breasts and a ceremonial false beard. Hapi might be compared to, oh boy, here we go with the Aztec names. Tlazotl, the Aztec goddess of fertility and sexuality, who was associated with the moon, and like the moon in Aztec culture, had both male and female characteristics. Tlazotl was nothing if not paradoxical. Although she inspired vice as Tlaquani, the eater of filth, she was also able, not unlike Jesus, to purify sinners by absorbing their sins. And if you have not heard of sin eating, it's along those lines. It's basically absolving someone of their sins by taking them on yourself. The Mesopotamian Ishtar, the beautiful goddess of fertility, love, war, and sex, was sometimes represented with a beard to emphasize her more bellicose side. She could change a man into a woman, and the Asinu, Kurgaru, and the Kukuru, who performed her cult, had both male and female features. After the hero Gilgamesh rejected her offer of marriage, probably not the brightest thing to do, or the wisest thing to do, Ishtar unleashed the Bull of Heaven, ultimately leading to the death of Enkidu, whom Gilgamesh loved more than anyone. And it's said in the mythos, he stated, "Hear me, great ones of Uruk. I wait for Echidnu, my friend, bitterly mourning like a woman mourning." The only blue shimmer I have, or that I could find, is in the next palette, so forgive me. I will come back to this one and another one for the purple colors. But this is the only metallic blue I could find. Gilgamesh bears more than a passing resemblance to the Greco-Roman Hercules, who spent a year as a slave to Omphale, queen of Lydia. Omphale made him wear women's clothes and sit at the spinning wheel, while she herself wore the skin of a Nemean lion and brandished his olive wood club. Let me try a different brush, because that one is not wanting to cooperate as much. Let me try this. I was trying to stick to one brush for blending purposes, but that doesn't always work out. Especially where I'm getting into the more plain and valley sections of the face. To seduce the nymph Callisto, Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, took the form of the goddess Artemis, which I've also done a video about, I should say. Zeus took many lovers, but according to Xenophon, granted immortality to only one, the Trojan prince Ganymede. Other instances of same-sex, typically male love in Greek myth include Apollo and Hyacinthus, Hermes and Crocus, Dionysus and Ampelos, Poseidon and Pelops, Orpheus and Calais, and Hercules and Abderus, Hylas and Iolaus. In these pairings, the Eromenoi, or younger men, usually got killed, with the first three, Hyacinthus, Crocus, and Ampelos, finishing up as plants, hyacinths, crocus, and the vine. Hence why we have those plants today. Also in Greek myth, the prophet Tiresias spent 7 years as a woman, even giving birth to children in that time. One day, Zeus and his wife Hera dragged him into an argument about who has more pleasure in sex. Women, as Zeus claimed, or Hera claimed man. Tiresias answered that of 10 parts, a man enjoys only 1. For this, Hera struck him blind, but Zeus compensated him with the gift of foresight and a lifespan of 7 lives. Going back to the Nordic pantheon, we have Loki, who is infamous for being gender fluid and even spending some time as a female horse or mare, during which she gave birth. These are just a few examples of an astronomically long list of deities who were gender fluid and or portrayed other LGBT aspects. I will try to find and include the link to a more cohesive list of LGBT and gender fluid deities down in the comments below in a pinned comment. That way you can take the time to take a look at the list and see that across many cultures and across many groups of people, the LGBT community was not only recognized but celebrated. And that it only happened, unfortunately, largely due to the spread of monotheistic religions, that the LGBT community became more pressed, and what's the word I'm looking for? Deemed in ill regard, I guess we could say. Let's put it that way. I know my channel isn't monetized, which is largely why I can actually talk about this subject, where YouTube, for unfortunate and unknown reasons, has been punishing that community and those channels that are monetized. So hopefully my little voice can help make up for that in some small way. But let's see. Now, just going down. Sorry, I'm just trying to find... Okay. Paganism celebrates wildness, sexuality, and the beauty of nature, and the sheer joy of being alive. However, while the vast majority of pagans are not homophobic, they can sometimes be heterocentric, like society is at large. Every single community, because the world is largely ruled by heterosexuality, it is often thrust into everyone's faces, and as a result, that even carries sometimes into the pagan community. Those in the community who are LGBT and pagan, together with allies, are working to recover the ancient pagan traditions of the gender variant shaman divine androgyny? Yeah. Deities of same-sex love, and discover or invent new symbols for the divinity of LGBT experience. The pagan community also supports marriage equality, and we see the struggle for LGBT equality and the recovery of LGBT stories, mythology, and ritual as complementary efforts. Currently, pagans in opposite-sex relationships in England and Wales cannot have legal wedding except at one venue. I don't know why it says opposite sex. It should say same-sex relationships. And again, this was at the time that this information was written. I don't know if this still holds true, but there was only one venue, the Glastonbury Goddess Temple. And this is because buildings are what get licensed as wedding venues in England and Wales. And pagans don't own any buildings. So even when the same-sex marriage became available in England and Wales, pagans, much as what would have any legal standing, pagans, much as we would want to, were still unable to perform any wedding ceremonies for same-sex couples that would have any legal standing. We can still do they can still do same-sex hand fastings just as they've always done, but they don't, unfortunately, have any legal standing. In Scotland, sorry, I am having a very big mouth brain not connecting day. In Scotland, pagans in both opposite sex and same-sex relationships can have a legal wedding because people are licensed as celebrants, and the wedding can be performed anywhere you want. So when same-sex marriage became available in Scotland, pagan celebrants were able to perform same-sex weddings. The Scottish Pagan Federation actively campaigned for equal marriage in Scotland, along with the Unitarians, Quakers, liberal Jews, and other groups. In Wicca, which this is one of the reasons why I say time changes things and people don't want to take that as an excuse, but unfortunately, when things started can have reasoning as to why certain aspects may not have been as included. Wicca started in 1954, which I want you to try to think back on what society was like in 1954. In many places, homosexuality was still illegal. You saw a lot of legal oppression of the homosexual and LGBT community. And some aspects of that carried over into Wicca when it began. So don't come for me if you're Wiccan. They've been expanding since they started, but when it originated in 1954, it was predominantly male and female goddesses and holding true to gender paradigms or biological gender versus gender fluidity. So, within Wicca, which began in 1954, which again may be a reason why there has been some adjustment needed to the mentality in the religion, there is some discussion around creating LGBT inclusive rituals because many Wiccans honor a specific pair of deities, male and female. Some covens focus on the mythology of the divine couple in the exclusion of other mythology, and this can be alienating for LGBT Wiccans. However, many Wiccans are keen to create rituals that include everyone and explore other ideas. I think I will try that color. I'll go with a new brush because I think the blue is carrying into that a little bit too much. If we look back into the pagan past, we can see many queer deities such as Odin, Vertumnus, Pan, Artemis, and the Pales, and so on. There is a tradition of the divine androgyny in Wicca. It is not difficult to tweak the rituals slightly to make them more LGBT inclusive. And this is also great for heterosexuals who find the gender binary paradigm rather tedious. In heathenry, there is the practice of Seder, I think. Yes, Seder, a shamanic practice which can involve gender bending and same-sex love, and many LGBTQ people are attracted to heathenry as a result. There is a long tradition in some indigenous cultures of gender-variant shamans and same-sex love. I believe they were called two-spirit people. And again, this isn't from all indigenous tribal groups, but it was present in some of them. That much I know. Or two-spirit people. Sorry, I lost my space. Traditional societies often regard queer people as being especially able to step over the threshold between the seen and unseen worlds, hence the traditional link between being fae and being queer, aka the perhaps not so flattering or pleasant term of being deemed a fairy. Paganism is largely an open source religion where people are free to create their own rituals, drawing on the glittering variety of mythology and symbolism available from past and present. So it is an ideal setting for LGBTQ people to explore our spirituality because it is mostly welcoming and inclusive. So I hope this video has imparted some knowledge on the inclusiveness of the LGBT community in general. Granted, this will not be true of all groups. This is just a general introductory video into this subject. And how the LGBT community was included in both ancient and modern day pagan beliefs and practices. If you enjoyed this video and wish to have more like it, please be sure to let me know in the comments. Don't be shy, I promise I don't bite. And before you go, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can stay tuned for when I release new videos. And with all of that said, until next time, I wish you the brightest of blessings and blessed be.